Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 fought Vilgax to the death. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, the storm breaks. The explosion ripped through the night sky, sending a shockwave that rattled windows for blocks. Ben Tennyson's hand flew to the Omnitrix before his brain even registered the danger. Pure instinct after years of being Earth's defender. "Happy birthday to me," he muttered, watching the green glow spread across his wrist. The celebration at Mr. Smoothie had been going great until about 30 seconds ago. His 18th birthday party scattered in panic as debris rained down from whatever had just detonated above Bellwood. Kevin slid across the hood of his car, eyes locked on the burning shape plummeting toward the park. "Tell me that's just some really intense fireworks you ordered, Tennyson." "Yeah, and I also ordered the screaming civilians for authenticity." Ben rolled his eyes, already cycling through alien options. "Gwen, can you, on it?" Gwen's hands glowed with mana as she created a barrier over the fleeing bystanders. "Do what you do best, birthday boy." Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix dial. The familiar rush of transformation washed over him as his DNA rewrote itself. Jetray. He launched into the sky, red wings cutting through smoke as he raced toward the falling object. Whatever it wasn't natural. The metal gleamed with familiar technology. "Guys, this thing is," Ben started, but the object suddenly changed course, rocketing straight toward him. Whoa! He barrel-rolled, barely avoiding collision. The thing, definitely a drone now that he could see it clearly, pivoted mid-air and fired. Purple energy blasts scorched past him. "Okay, rude." Ben banked hard right, firing neuroshock blasts from his eyes and tail. The drone absorbed the hits like they were nothing. That's new. The drone's surface reconfigured, revealing a much larger weapons array. It fired a barrage that Ben couldn't fully dodge. Pain lanced through his wing as one blast connected. He spiraled downward, fighting for control. "Ben!" Gwen's voice came through his plumber badge. "What's happening up there?" "Nothing good," he grunted. "This tech is," the drone's hull split open, revealing a pulsing core and a holographic projection that made Ben's blood run cold. Tennyson. Vilgax's face, scarred and cruel as ever, loomed above the city. "Consider this a birthday greeting. The first of many surprises." Vilgax. Ben recovered his flight path, hovering before the projection. "Thought you'd be dead by now. Or at least smart enough to stay away." The warlord's laugh echoed across the night. "After all these years, you still underestimate me. This drone is merely a messenger. There are hundreds more, targeting everyone you've ever saved, everyone you care about. Your failure begins tonight." The hologram dissolved as the drone's core began to pulse rapidly. "It's gonna blow." Ben shouted, realizing the entire drone was a bomb. He transformed mid-air, slamming the Omnitrix again. Echo, echo. Multiplying instantly, Ben surrounded the drone with sonic-powered duplicates, creating a containment sphere of sound waves. The explosion still came, but his duplicates absorbed and redirected the worst of it upward. The shockwave sent his clones flying in all directions. Ben reformed into a single echo echo and dropped toward the ground, hitting the Omnitrix again just before impact. Cannonbolt. He crashed into the park, leaving a sizable crater. Rolling to a stop, he reverted to human form, slightly dazed but very much alert. Kevin screeched to a halt nearby, Gwen already running toward Ben. "Vilgax?" she asked, already knowing the answer from Ben's expression. "Yeah." Ben dusted himself off. "And he's got that I've spent years planning this revenge vibe going strong." Kevin kicked a piece of drone debris. "Thought that squid-faced freak was trapped in that other dimension after the Diagon thing." "So did I." Ben frowned, examining the tech fragments scattered around them. This isn't his usual style. The drones absorbed my energy attacks. His plumber badge crackled to life. Ben! Are you there? Grandpa Max's urgent voice filled the night air. Here, Grandpa. Vilgax I know. We've got reports of similar drones attacking worldwide. Plumber bases, known alien settlements, and... Max paused. Ben, one just hit your parents' house. Ben felt like he'd been punched in the gut. They're fine. They weren't home. But this is coordinated, hitting targets simultaneously across the globe. Kevin was already heading back to his car. This is a diversion. Has to be. Gwen grabbed Ben's arm. He's right. Vilgax wouldn't just announce his presence like this unless he's after something bigger. Ben's face hardened. Grandpa, we need to. Another explosion, this one from downtown, cut him off. That's near the hospital, Gwen said, eyes wide. Ben didn't hesitate. Grandpa, coordinate with the other plumbers. We'll handle downtown. Ben, wait, Max started, but Ben had already transformed. XLR-8. The world blurred around him as Ben raced toward downtown Bellwood. His mind raced even faster. Vilgax back. Multiple targets. Overwhelming force. This wasn't like the Conqueror's usual direct attacks. He skidded to a stop outside the hospital to find chaos. 2 drones were systematically blasting through the building's upper floors. Patients and staff evacuated in panic below. Hey! Tentacle-faced toys. Ben shouted, hitting the Omnitrix again. Humongosaur. Ben grew to full 20-foot height, grabbing a chunk of broken concrete and hurling it at the nearest drone. Direct hit, but like the first one, it simply absorbed the impact. Adaptive shielding, Ben growled, charging forward. Fine. Let's test how adaptive. He leapt, catching a drone mid-air and squeezing with all his strength. The metal creaked but held. Suddenly, electrical energy surged from the drone, coursing through Ben's body. He roared in pain but didn't let go, instead slamming the drone repeatedly against the ground. The second drone fired at his back. Ben spun, using the first drone as a shield. The blast overloaded its systems, and Ben hurled the malfunctioning drone at its partner. Both exploded on impact. And that's how it's done, he grunted, shrinking back down. A plumber transport arrived, with agents already setting up a perimeter. Ben spotted a familiar face. Rook. He jogged over to his former partner. When did you get back to Earth? Approximately 6 hours ago. Rook looked as composed as ever despite the chaos. Not the homecoming I expected. Happy birthday, by the way. Yeah, thanks. Vilgax really knows how to throw a party. Ben glanced at the hospital. Casualties? 3 injured, none critical. Rook's expression darkened. But this is happening globally. The pattern suggests a coordinated first strike, Ben finished. But why hospitals? Plumber bases I get, but civilian targets? Rook showed him a data pad. Not just any hospital. This one has been treating a Tetramand ambassador for the past week. Ben's eyes widened. He's targeting aliens on Earth. And anyone who helps them. Gwen and Kevin pulled up in Kevin's car, both looking grim. Ben, Gwen called, rushing over. It's Grandpa Max. His team responded to an attack at the Mount Rushmore base and Ben felt cold dread sweep through him. Is he okay? He's alive, Kevin said. But it's bad. They're bringing him to Plumber HQ now. We need to go, Ben said, already moving toward Kevin's car. Ben. Rook placed a hand on his shoulder. There are still 12 active drone situations across Bellwood alone. Ben hesitated, torn between family and duty. The weight of the Omnitrix seemed to grow heavier on his wrist. "I'll coordinate the drone response team," Rook continued. "Go to Max. He would do the same for you." Ben nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Rook." Plumber HQ buzzed with frantic activity. Agents rushed between stations, monitoring global attacks. Medical staff worked furiously in the infirmary. Ben stood outside the surgical area, watching through the window as doctors worked on his grandfather. Max's chest was a mess of burns and shrapnel wounds. Machines beeped steadily, at least confirming he was alive. He pushed 2 junior plumbers out of the blast radius, Magister Patelladay explained, his fish-like features grim. Took the brunt himself. Ben couldn't tear his eyes away from the scene. "That's Grandpa for you." Gwen stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "He's tough, Ben. He'll pull through." "I know." Ben's voice hardened. "And Vilgax is going to pay for this." Kevin returned from the command center. "Attack reports are slowing down. The drones self-destruct after completing their objectives." "And the objectives?" Ben asked. "Targeted. Very targeted." Kevin handed him a tablet. "Every major alien ally we have on Earth. Diplomatic stations, medical facilities, tech research centers. Even Professor Paradox's last known location got hit. He's cutting us off," Gwen realized. "Isolating Earth by targeting our connections to alien allies." Ben scrolled through the data. "Where's Azimuth? Is he okay?" "No reports from Galvan Prime yet," Kevin said. "Communications are spotty with half our relay stations damaged." Ben paced, mind racing. This isn't Vilgax's style. He usually shows up with an armada, challenges me directly. All this, it's too subtle. "Maybe he finally learned from getting his butt kicked so many times," Kevin suggested. "Or maybe he's not working alone," Gwen added. A young plumber burst into the room. "We're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies worldwide." Ben exchanged glances with his team before rushing to the command center. The main screen flickered before revealing Vilgax, looking more menacing than ever. Cybernetic enhancements covered more of his body, and the scars from their past battles seemed to glow with an unnatural light. "People of Earth," Vilgax began, his voice a rumbling bass that sent chills down Ben's spine. "For too long, your world has been protected by a child wielding power he does not deserve and cannot fully comprehend." Footage played beside him, Ben's past battles, focused on moments of destruction and civilian endangerment. "Your hero has brought the attention of the universe to your insignificant planet. The enemies he has made are legion. The lives he has disrupted, countless." The footage shifted to show today's attacks. Today's demonstration was merely a prelude. "I have placed devices throughout Earth's atmosphere. Devices that, once activated, will release a pathogen specifically engineered using DNA samples from the Omnitrix itself." Ben's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. He couldn't have, even now, your primitive sensors are detecting them. But only I can deactivate them." Vilgax leaned closer to the camera. "Benjamin Tennyson. You have 24 hours to surrender yourself and the Omnitrix to me. Come alone to the coordinates being transmitted to your plumber headquarters. If you fail to appear, or if any attempt is made to remove my atmospheric devices, the pathogen will release." The screen split to show footage of a test subject exposed to the pathogen. The alien's body deteriorated rapidly, turning to dust within seconds. "A single human would take approximately 6 minutes to dissolve," Vilgax continued dispassionately. "The pathogen will affect every living being on Earth simultaneously." Vilgax's red eyes seemed to bore directly into Ben. 24 hours, Tennyson. Your grandfather was merely the beginning. How many more will suffer for your continued defiance?" The transmission cut off, leaving stunned silence in the command center. "Scan the atmosphere," Ben ordered, snapping everyone back to attention. I want those devices found now. Already scanning, a technician responded. We're detecting unusual energy signatures in the upper atmosphere. Thousands of them, spread globally. Can we neutralize them? Gwen asked. The technician shook his head. Not without risking activation. Kevin punched a nearby wall, denting the metal. He's got us cornered. No, Ben said firmly. He's desperate. Vilgax has never gone to these lengths before. Something's changed. Magister Patellidae approached with a data pad. The coordinates Vilgax sent. It's an abandoned mining colony on Aner Transil's third moon. A trap, Gwen said immediately. Obviously. Ben's expression was resolute. But we're not playing by his rules. He turned to the command center staff. I need secure communications with Galvan Prime immediately. And check every database we have on DNA-targeted pathogens. Ben looked back at the screen where Vilgax's face had been moments before. Vilgax thinks he's changed the game. But he doesn't realize we're not playing the same one anymore. 3 hours later, Ben stood in a rarely used lab deep within Plumber HQ. Floating projection screens displayed everything they knew about the atmospheric devices. Gwen worked with a team of Plumber scientists, analyzing atmospheric readings, while Kevin examined drone fragments. Anything? Ben asked, returning with coffee for everyone. Kevin held up a circuit board. This tech is definitely Vilgax's, but improved. Like someone upgraded his whole arsenal. The energy signatures match known Chimera sui generis technology, one scientist added. But with elements we've never seen before. Ben frowned. What about the pathogen threat? Is it even possible? Gwen looked up from her workstation. Theoretically, yes. If Vilgax somehow obtained DNA samples from the Omnitrix and had someone skilled enough to weaponize them. Dr. Psychoboss could do it, Kevin suggested. Or maybe Albedo. Great, so Vilgax is potentially working with other enemies now. Ben rubbed his temples. Any luck reaching Azimuth? Still no response from Galvan Prime, a communications officer reported. Ben paced restlessly. We need more information about these atmospheric devices. If they're in orbit, maybe. The lab door slid open, and Rook entered with a medical officer. Ben, your grandfather is awake. He is asking for you. Ben immediately headed for the infirmary, finding Max propped up in bed, connected to various monitors. Despite the bandages covering much of his torso and face, his eyes were alert. Ben, Max managed, his voice raspy. Hey, Grandpa. Ben tried to smile. You look terrible. Should see the other guy. Max winced as he shifted. Vilgax's drones, something different about them. Yeah, we noticed. Ben sat beside the bed. They adapt to energy attacks, have some kind of absorption technology. Not just that. Max reached for water, and Ben helped him drink. The one that hit us, it targeted our DNA scanners. Specifically went after the database. Ben frowned. DNA scanners? Why would, he stopped, eyes widening. The pathogen. Vilgax said it was engineered using Omnitrix DNA. And he'd need baseline human DNA to target Earth's population, Max confirmed. Our database has comprehensive samples. But how did he get Omnitrix samples? Ben wondered. I haven't fought him directly in years. Max's expression darkened. There's something you should know. 6 months ago, we detected an unauthorized access to the Plumber network. Very sophisticated. We thought we contained it. You think Vilgax was behind the hack? No. Max shook his head slowly. Vilgax lacks that kind of technical finesse. But someone may have sold him the information. Ben's mind raced. We need to figure out who. And we need a way to neutralize those atmospheric devices without triggering them. There may be a way, Max said. Help me up. Grandpa, you need to rest. Not with Earth at stake. Max struggled to sit up further. In my quarters, there's a secure safe behind the Rushmore painting. Access code October 7, 97. Ben recognized the date, the day he found the Omnitrix. What's in it? Information the plumbers have been gathering on Vilgax for decades. Including weaknesses in his technology we've never had to use. Max gripped Ben's wrist. Be careful, Ben. Vilgax has never been this methodical before. Something's driving him beyond just wanting the Omnitrix. I'll figure it out, Grandpa. Ben stood. You focus on healing up so you can help me kick his butt when this is over. Max managed a weak smile. One more thing. If these attacks are as coordinated as they seem, Vilgax isn't working alone. Ben entered Max's quarters, quickly locating the painting of Mount Rushmore. Behind it was a small safe embedded in the wall. He entered the code, and the safe hissed open, revealing an old-style data drive and a small metal case. He took both items back to the lab, where Gwen and Kevin waited. How's Max? Gwen asked worriedly. Awake and already trying to help. Ben held up the drive. Grandpa thinks there's something in here that might help us counter Vilgax's tech. Kevin connected the drive to a secure terminal. Files dating back decades appeared on screen, mission reports, encounter logs, technical analyses. Whoa, Kevin whistled. The plumbers have been studying Vilgax longer than you've been alive, Tennyson. Ben opened the metal case. Inside was a small, hexagonal device with galvan markings. Anyone know what this is? Gwen examined it. It looks like galvan tech, but I've never seen anything like it. It's a quantum encryption key, came a voice from the doorway. They turned to find Azimuth standing there, looking as cantankerous as ever. Azimuth! Ben exclaimed. We've been trying to reach you for hours. Yes, well, when one receives word that Vilgax is threatening global extinction, one makes time in one's schedule. The Galvan creator hopped onto the lab table. Even if it means dealing with you, Ben Tennyson. Nice to see you too, Ben muttered. Azimuth picked up the hexagonal device. Max Tennyson was wise to keep this. It's a failsafe I designed specifically to counter Vilgax's shield technology. Wait, you designed tech specifically against Vilgax? Kevin asked. Why haven't we used it before? Because it's a one-time solution, Azimuth explained. Once deployed, Vilgax would adapt his technology. It was meant as a last resort. Which this definitely is, Gwen said. Can it neutralize the atmospheric devices? Azimuth shook his head. Not from here. It would need to be deployed at the source of the transmission controlling them. Vilgax's ship, Ben realized. Precisely. Azimuth turned to Ben. But I didn't come merely to explain old technology. I'm here because the Omnitrix has detected unauthorized DNA extraction. Ben looked at his wrist. When? How? Approximately 3 months ago. The Omnitrix contains safeguards that alert me when someone attempts to access its core functions. Azimuth's eyes narrowed. Someone managed to extract trace amounts of transformative DNA from the Omnitrix's buffer. Could they actually make a pathogen from that? Ben asked. With the right expertise, yes. Azimuth looked grim. But creating a pathogen that could target all Earth life would require more than just Omnitrix DNA. It would need human DNA baselines, Ben finished. Which Vilgax stole from the plumber database 6 months ago. Rook entered the lab, his expression urgent. Ben, we have detected Vilgax's ship entering the solar system. It's on the far side of Jupiter, using the planet's magnetic field as cover. Then that's where I'm going. Ben stood. Not alone, Gwen said firmly. Vilgax said to come alone or he'd release the pathogen. And you believe him? Kevin scoffed. The moment you show up, he'll activate those devices anyway. Kevin's right, Azimuth said. Vilgax has no intention of sparing Earth. This ultimatum is merely to get you isolated and vulnerable. Ben looked at his friends, then back at Azimuth. So what's the play? I can modify the Omnitrix to temporarily mask certain alien signatures, Azimuth said. It will allow you to use forms Vilgax isn't expecting. While you confront Vilgax, Rook continued, we can deploy a small team to locate and neutralize the atmospheric device control system. A two-pronged attack, Ben nodded. But we still need a way to get close without being detected. Kevin grinned. Leave that to me. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. We have less than 20 hours before Vilgax's deadline, Gwen reminded them. We need to move fast. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. Azimuth, do what you need to do. It's time Vilgax learned that threatening my world and hurting my family was his last mistake. Kevin's trick turned out to be a heavily modified Plumber scout ship with experimental cloaking technology. Borrowed it from the Plumber impound, he explained as they boarded. Confiscated from some Incursion smugglers last year. By borrowed, you mean? Gwen raised an eyebrow. Requisitioned with extreme prejudice, Kevin grinned. Don't worry, Patelladay approved it. Mostly. The small ship could hold only 5 people comfortably. Ben, Gwen, Kevin, Rook, and to everyone's surprise, Azimuth had insisted on coming. The modifications to the Omnitrix are complex, the Galvan explained. I may need to make adjustments on the fly. As they prepared for launch, Ben received a transmission from Plumber HQ, Magister Patelladay appeared on screen. Ben, we've detected unusual activity in the atmospheric devices. They're becoming more active. Ben frowned. Is Vilgax triggering them early? Doesn't look like activation, more like they're gathering data. Scanning. Scanning for what? Gwen asked. Unknown. But it started right after we detected energy signatures consistent with null void projector technology. Ben and Gwen exchanged alarmed glances. Someone's bringing something from the null void. Or someone, Kevin suggested ominously. Keep monitoring, Ben instructed. We're launching now. The ship lifted off smoothly, its engines barely making a sound. As they exited Earth's atmosphere, the cloaking technology engaged, bending light around the vessel. Estimated arrival at Jupiter's orbit, 2 hours, 17 minutes, Rook reported from the pilot's seat. Ben stared out the viewport at the receding Earth. We're cutting it close. We will make it, Rook assured him. The ship's engines have been enhanced. Kevin smirked. Top speed is about twice what the specs claim. While Rook piloted, Azimuth worked on the Omnitrix, connecting it to a small Galvan device. I'm unlocking several transformations you haven't used before, he explained. And masking others from external detection. Vilgax expects certain aliens, we'll give him something new. New aliens? Despite the gravity of their mission, Ben couldn't hide his excitement. Like what? You'll find out when necessary. Azimuth said cryptically. I'm also installing a temporary bypass for the safeguards that prevent DNA mixing. Fusion aliens? Ben's eyes widened. You always said that was dangerous. It is. Hence, temporary. The function will disable itself after 12 hours. As Azimuth worked, Gwen studied the data they had on Vilgax's atmospheric devices. These readings are strange. The devices aren't just containing a pathogen, they're actively generating it. Which means they need a continuous power source, Kevin realized. Cut the power. And the pathogen production stops, Gwen finished. That could be our edge. Ben joined them, watching the data scroll by. So we need to find the main power source on Vilgax's ship. Most likely near the central command center, Rook called over his shoulder. Standard Chimera Sui Generis vessel design places crucial systems close to the bridge for defense purposes. Great, so we just need to fight our way to the most heavily guarded part of the ship, Ben said sarcastically. No problem. Kevin absorbed metal from a nearby panel, coating his arms. Like old times. Approaching Jupiter's orbit, Rook announced. Sensors are detecting Vilgax's vessel. It's enormous. The view screen showed a massive ship emerging from behind Jupiter. Unlike Vilgax's previous vessels, this one was asymmetrical, with jagged protrusions and pulsing red energy coursing through transparent conduits. That doesn't look like standard Chimera Sui Generis design, Gwen noted. It's not, Azimuth said grimly. Those energy signatures, that's Chronosapien technology. Vilgax has incorporated time manipulation components. Time manipulation? Ben's stomach dropped. Like Maltruant? Similar, though cruder. Likely salvaged from Maltruant's remains. Azimuth disconnected his tools from the Omnitrix. The modifications are complete. Use them wisely, Ben. A warning klaxon suddenly blared through the ship. Rook's hands flew across the controls. We've been scanned. The cloaking field is failing. How? Kevin demanded. This tech should be undetectable. Chronosapien technology, Azimuth explained. It can detect temporal anomalies created by cloaking fields. The ship shuddered as something locked onto them. A tractor beam engulfed their vessel, pulling them inexorably toward Vilgax's massive ship. So much for the stealth approach, Ben muttered, standing up. New plan. They're bringing us directly to Vilgax, which is where I wanted to go anyway. And the rest of us? Gwen asked. The moment we're inside, we split up. Rook, you and Kevin find the power core. Gwen, you locate the control center for the atmospheric devices. Azimuth, I will remain undetected and provide technical support, the Galvan said. I can interface with the ship's systems if necessary. Ben nodded. I'll keep Vilgax occupied. Give you all the time I can. The tractor beam pulled them into a massive hangar bay. Through the viewports, they could see dozens of attack drones like the ones that had assaulted Earth, along with armed guards. Ready? Ben asked, his hand hovering over the Omnitrix. His team nodded. Then let's show Vilgax what happens when he messes with our planet. The ship settled onto the hangar floor with a gentle thud. Outside, guards surrounded them, weapons trained on the entry hatch. Ben hit the Omnitrix, feeling the familiar rush of transformation. Wrath. The feline alien burst through the hatch, roaring. Let me tell you something, Vilgax's security detail. Wrath is gonna use your weapons to floss Wrath's teeth after Wrath turns you into lunch. The guards opened fire as Ben charged forward, providing the distraction they needed. Behind him, Kevin and Rook slipped out one side of the ship while Gwen created a mana platform that carried her up to an overhead maintenance tunnel. Azimuth remained hidden inside. Ben tore through the guards like paper, Wrath's uncontrollable rage perfect for creating chaos. Where's Vilgax? Wrath wants to talk to him about proper birthday etiquette. A massive screen on the hangar wall flickered to life, revealing Vilgax's face. Tennyson. Predictable as always. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your friends coming along? The floor beneath Kevin and Rook suddenly opened, dropping them into a chute. Gwen's mana platform dissolved as energy dampeners activated in the ceiling. No. Ben growled, leaping toward where his friends had disappeared. Don't worry, Tennyson, Vilgax continued. They won't be harmed, yet. Follow the lighted path. I'm waiting. Red lights illuminated a corridor leading from the hangar. Ben hesitated, looking back at the ship where Azimuth remained hidden. The Galvan was their ace in the hole, if Vilgax didn't know he was here, they still had a chance. Ben hit the Omnitrix again. For arms. The Tetraman form gave him the strength to punch through several more guards as he made his way to the corridor. He'd follow Vilgax's path, for now, but he'd be ready to act the moment he got an opportunity. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, with multiple security checkpoints. Each featured different defenses, laser grids, gravity plates, robotic sentries. Ben cycled through transformations, using Diamond Head to reflect energy blasts, Big Chill to phase through barriers, and Swampfire to overwhelm sensor arrays with generated spores. Finally, he reached massive double doors emblazoned with Vilgax's symbol. They slid open as he approached, revealing a vast chamber beyond. At its center stood Vilgax, larger and more imposing than Ben remembered. Cybernetic enhancements covered more of his body, and tubes of glowing red energy connected to ports in his arms and chest. "Benjamin," Vilgax rumbled, his voice deeper than before. "You've grown since our last encounter." Ben reverted to human form, standing tall. "Where are my friends, Vilgax?" Vilgax gestured to a wall where 3 stasis pods materialized. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook floated inside, unconscious but apparently unharmed. "Safe, for now. Though their continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. Let me guess. Hand over the Omnitrix or they die." Ben rolled his eyes. "Your greatest hits album is getting old, squid face." Vilgax didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he pressed a control on his gauntlet. A holographic display appeared between them, showing Earth with thousands of glowing points scattered throughout its atmosphere. "My atmospheric devices are fully deployed and operational. With another command, they will release the pathogen. But unlike my previous claims, the effects won't be instantaneous." The hologram shifted to show a simulation of the pathogen spreading. "It will begin with the young and elderly. Their immune systems will deteriorate over approximately 12 hours. Then healthy adults will follow, lasting perhaps a day longer. A slow, painful extinction for your species." "What do you want, Vilgax?" Ben demanded. "You've never gone to these lengths before. This isn't about the Omnitrix anymore, is it?" A flicker of surprise crossed Vilgax's face before his expression hardened again. "Perceptive, Tennyson. No, this is about something far greater." He stepped closer. "This is about the survival of my species." Ben frowned. "What are you talking about?" "The Chimera sui generis are dying out. A genetic degradation has affected our reproductive capabilities for generations. Each new birth produces weaker offspring." Vilgax's red eyes narrowed. "But your Omnitrix contains the pure genetic code of my ancestors, before the degradation began." Ben's eyes widened in realization. "You want to use the Omnitrix to save your species. To restore it to greatness," Vilgax corrected. "Which is why I need more than just the device itself. I need its creator." "Where is Azimuth?" "Not here," Ben lied smoothly. "Did you really think I'd risk bringing the smartest being in 3 galaxies right to you?" Vilgax studied him for a moment. "Perhaps not. But it doesn't matter. My scientists have made significant progress already. The atmospheric devices are proof of that. With or without Azimuth, I will have what I need." "By threatening genocide?" Ben shook his head. "There are other ways, Vilgax. Ways that don't involve destroying innocent lives." "I offered those other ways decades ago," Vilgax snarled, his calm facade cracking. "Before you were born, I sought Azimuth's help. He refused. The Galvan are always so quick to judge, to decide which species deserve their assistance." Ben took a cautious step forward. "Then let me help. The Omnitrix was created to foster understanding between species. We can find a solution that doesn't involve destroying Earth." Vilgax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "Your naivety is almost charming, Tennyson. But I'm done negotiating. I'm done begging for help from those who see my kind as nothing but conquerors and warriors." He raised his gauntlet again. "You have a choice. Surrender the Omnitrix and remain as my prisoner to assist with the genetic restoration, or watch as your planet dies slowly before your eyes. Choose now. Ben glanced at his friends in the stasis pods, then back at the hologram of Earth. Millions of lives in the balance. But he'd been in impossible situations before. There's always a third option, Vilgax. Ben's hand moved to the Omnitrix. The one where I stop you. He slammed down on the dial, feeling unfamiliar DNA flow through him as one of Asmitha's unlocked transformations took hold. Atomix. Energy coursed through Ben's new form, a humanoid alien encased in armor with nuclear symbols. HMENA. Vilgax stepped back, visibly surprised by the unfamiliar transformation. A Facilian? Impossible. They were extinct before the Omnitrix was created. Guess Asmitha's got better DNA sources than you thought. Ben raised his hands, generating a pulsing sphere of nuclear energy. Nuclear winner. The blast hit Vilgax square in the chest, sending him crashing through a support column. But the warlord recovered quickly, the red energy in his cybernetic tubes pulsing brighter. Impressive, Vilgax growled, dusting himself off. But futile. He pressed his gauntlet, and the chamber transformed. The floor split open, revealing a pit of swirling energy below. The stasis pods containing Ben's friends moved to hang precariously above it. Temporal displacement field, Vilgax explained. One push, and your friends will be scattered across different time streams, lost forever. Ben hesitated, nuclear energy still crackling around his hands. That's better, Vilgax nodded. Now, the Omnitrix. You know I can't just take it off, Ben stalled, mind racing for a solution. It's genetically bonded to me. I'm well aware. Vilgax approached, drawing a serrated blade from his back. Which is why I'm prepared to take your arm with it. Before Ben could react, alarms blared throughout the ship. Vilgax whirled toward a console, his expression furious as he read the alerts. Impossible. The power core is fluctuating. Someone has. A small explosion rocked the ship, causing Vilgax to stumble. Ben seized the opportunity, firing another energy blast that knocked Vilgax back. He followed with a diving tackle that sent them both tumbling away from the console. Looks like your security isn't as good as you thought, Ben taunted. Vilgax roared in rage, grabbing Ben and hurling him across the chamber. It doesn't matter. The atmospheric devices have their own power reserves. Even if your friend somehow disabled the main core, Earth is still doomed. Ben hit the wall hard, reverting to human form from the impact. The Omnitrix beeped in recharge mode. Vilgax stalked toward him, blade raised. I tried to be reasonable, Tennyson. I offered you a choice. Now you get none. As Vilgax reached for him, a blast of mana hit the warlord from behind. Ben looked up to see Gwen's stasis pod glowing bright pink as she regained consciousness, her powers disrupting the containment field. You talk too much, Vilgax, she managed, her voice strained from the effort. The distraction gave Ben just enough time for the Omnitrix to recharge. He slammed it down again. Feedback. Electricity crackled around his body as he absorbed energy from nearby systems. Let's see how your fancy new cybernetics handle an overload. Ben grabbed Vilgax's arm, channeling massive amounts of energy into the warlord's systems. Vilgax convulsed, the red energy in his tubes flaring wildly. You, fool. Vilgax gasped. The chronotech is unstable. You'll trigger a temporal collapse. Better than letting you destroy Earth. Ben poured more energy into the connection. The ship shuddered violently. Panels exploded around them as systems overloaded. Gwen managed to free herself completely from the stasis pod and was working on releasing Kevin and Rook. Ben, she called. The whole ship is destabilizing. Vilgax suddenly grabbed Ben with his other hand, squeezing with crushing force. If I fall, Tennyson, you fall with me. The warlord activated his gauntlet one final time. On the holographic display, the atmospheric devices around Earth began to pulse rapidly. No. Ben struggled against Vilgax's grip. Too late, Vilgax laughed through his pain. The countdown has begun. In 15 minutes, Earth dies, whether I'm alive to see it or not. A small form suddenly appeared on Vilgax's shoulder, Azimuth, holding what looked like a miniature version of the quantum encryption key. Your technology was always derivative, Vilgax, the Galvan said calmly, inserting the device into Vilgax's cybernetic port. Predictable. Vilgax roared in pain as the key activated, sending cascading failures through his systems. His grip on Ben loosened, and Ben broke free, reverting to human form. What did you do? Ben asked Azimuth as the Galvan jumped to his shoulder. I've temporarily disrupted his control over the atmospheric devices, Azimuth explained. But we have only minutes before the system resets and the countdown resumes. Gwen had freed Kevin and Rook, all three rushing to join Ben and Azimuth. The ship's going to implode, Kevin reported. Those fancy time tech mods are collapsing in on themselves. We need to get to the control center for the atmospheric devices, Rook said urgently. It's 2 levels down. Vilgax struggled to his feet, systems still failing. You won't escape. Ben faced his team. Gwen, Kevin, Rook, get to the control center. Azimuth, go with them. You'll need to disable the devices completely. What about you? Gwen asked, already knowing the answer. Ben glanced at Vilgax. Someone has to make sure he doesn't follow you. Ben, Gwen started. Go. Ben ordered. We don't have time to argue. Kevin nodded, understanding in his eyes. Come on, he said to the others. Tennyson's got this. As they hurried away, Ben turned back to Vilgax, who had managed to disconnect the quantum key, his systems slowly recovering. Just you and me now, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix again. The way it was always going to end. Yes, Vilgax growled, rising to his full height. The final battle, Tennyson. To the death. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, feeling Azimuth's modifications activating as 2 DNA samples merged. Heat blast. Ben's voice echoed strangely as his body transformed. But this wasn't the standard pyronite form. Ice crystals formed along his flaming body, a fusion with Big Chill. No. Ultimate heat blast. Steam hissed from Ben's body as fire and ice powers combined. Vilgax charged, blade swinging. Ben met the attack head-on, his hands superheating to melt through the metal while simultaneously freezing Vilgax's cybernetic tubes. The ship continued to break apart around them as they fought. Support beams crashed down, energy conduits exploded. Their battle became a desperate struggle not just against each other, but against the collapsing environment. Why so desperate, Vilgax? Ben taunted, dodging a punch that shattered the floor where he'd been standing. If your species is dying, why not just ask for help? The plumbers would have assisted a planetary crisis. Ask? Vilgax spat, ripping a metal beam from the wall to use as a club. Beg, you mean? Depend on the mercy of those who have looked down on the Chimera sui generis for millennia. Ben created a wall of flame to block the makeshift weapon. So pride is worth genocide? Worth becoming the monster everyone already thinks you are? You understand nothing. Vilgax roared. I tried diplomacy decades ago. I was young, idealistic. I believed in cooperation. His eyes narrowed. Then I watched as advanced worlds turned their backs on mine. As my people died while Galvans and Cerebrocrustaceans and Petrosapiens hoarded their technological advances. He swung again, catching Ben in the shoulder and sending him sprawling. So yes, Tennyson. If the price of my species' survival is your world's destruction, I pay it gladly. Ben struggled to his feet, the fusion transformation taxing his strength. There's still a better way. The time for better ways is long past. Vilgax raised his gauntlet again. Even now, your friends fail. The countdown continues. A massive explosion shook the ship, throwing them both off balance. Emergency lights flashed as automated announcements blared, temporal core breach imminent. Evacuate immediately. Ben hit the Omnitrix again, cycling to a new form. Alien X. The Celestialsapien's power flowed through him, but something was different. Azmatha's modifications had given him greater control, bypassing the need for agreement from Serena and Bellicus. It's over, Vilgax. Ben's voice echoed with cosmic power. I'm taking you in. Vilgax laughed, a desperate sound. Even with that power, you're too late. My atmospheric devices are autonomous. Even if you capture me, Earth dies. Another explosion rocked the ship. Through a breach in the wall, Ben could see the void of space, with Jupiter's massive form in the distance. The ship was tearing itself apart. Ben's communicator crackled. Ben. Gwen's voice came through. We found the control center, but it's locked down. Azmath says we need the master control sequence from Vilgax's main computer. Ben looked at Vilgax, who smiled malevolently. The sequence dies with me, Tennyson. A plan formed in Ben's mind. With Alien X's powers, he created a protective bubble around them both as the chamber collapsed. You're coming with me, Vilgax. Ben grabbed the warlord's arm. One way or another, we're ending this. He teleported them directly to the control center, where his friends were working frantically to bypass security systems. They looked up in shock as Ben and Vilgax materialized. Ben! Gwen exclaimed. The ship's about to implode, Ben said, still holding Vilgax. We need that control sequence now. Vilgax struggled against Ben's grip, but Alien X's strength was overwhelming. I'll die before I help you, the warlord snarled. You'll die either way if this ship goes, Kevin pointed out, absorbing metal from a nearby console. Your choice if you want to take Earth with you. Azmath stepped forward, standing directly in front of Vilgax. You once came to me for help, Vilgax. And I refused you. Perhaps that was wrong. Vilgax stopped struggling, staring at the Galvan in surprise. The genetic degradation of your species is a scientific problem, Azmath continued. One that could be solved without resorting to genocide. I was arrogant to dismiss it. Pretty late for apologies, Vilgax growled. Yes, Azmath acknowledged. But not too late to offer a solution. The Omnitrix contains uncorrupted Chimera sui generis DNA. With my knowledge, it could be used to create a cure for your people. Hope and suspicion warred on Vilgax's face. Why would you help now? Because that's what the Omnitrix was created for, Ben answered, reverting to human form. To foster understanding between species. To preserve life, not destroy it. Another massive explosion shook the control center. Warning lights flashed more urgently. Temporal implosion in 2 minutes, an automated voice announced. Decide quickly, Vilgax, Azmath pressed. Your people's future or your revenge. You cannot have both. Vilgax looked from Azmath to Ben, then at the display showing Earth with its thousands of atmospheric devices. The sequence, he finally said, his voice quieter than Ben had ever heard it. Delta Omega Crimson 603. Rook immediately entered the code. The display changed, showing the devices beginning to power down. It's working. Gwen confirmed. The pathogen production is stopping. 1 minute to temporal implosion, the ship's computer warned. We need to go, Kevin urged. Like, now. Ben nodded. Our ship. Destroyed in the hangar collapse, Rook reported. But there are escape pods on this level. Ben turned to Vilgax, who had slumped against a console, the fight drained from him. Are you coming? The warlord looked up, surprised by the offer. You would save me? After everything? That's what heroes do, Ben said simply. Even for their enemies. A massive structural beam crashed down, separating them as more of the ship tore apart. Ben lost sight of Vilgax in the debris and smoke. Ben, we have to go. Gwen pulled at his arm. Ben hesitated, then nodded. They raced to the escape pods, barely making it inside before the final sequence began. 10 seconds to temporal implosion, the computer counted down as their pod ejected from the dying ship. Through the viewport, they watched as Vilgax's massive vessel collapsed in on itself, folding into impossibly small dimensions before disappearing in a blinding flash of light. A temporal implosion, Azimuth explained softly. The ship and everything in it has been removed from our time stream. Is Vilgax? Ben couldn't finish the question. Gone, Azimuth confirmed. Whether dead or lost in time, I cannot say. Ben stared at the empty space where the ship had been. After all these years, all their battles, it felt strangely hollow to have it end this way. The atmospheric devices, he asked. Completely neutralized, Rook confirmed, checking readings. Earth is safe. Kevin piloted the escape pod toward Earth, its small engines straining with the distance. We'll need to call for a pickup, he noted. This thing doesn't have the range to get us all the way home. Ben nodded absently, his mind still processing everything that had happened. Vilgax was gone. The threat to Earth neutralized. But at what cost? And was it truly over? Ben. Gwen placed a hand on his shoulder. You okay? Yeah, he said, turning to his team, his friends. We did it. We saved Earth. Again, Kevin added with a small smile. Though I sense your victory feels incomplete, Azimuth observed shrewdly. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. Vilgax said his people were dying. Was that true? Azimuth sighed. Yes. The Chimera sui generis have indeed experienced genetic degradation for generations. It is, part of why Vilgax became the conqueror he was. Desperation can drive even noble intentions to dark places. Could you really have helped them? Ben asked. With the Omnitrix? Possibly, Azimuth admitted. The uncorrupted DNA samples could provide a foundation for treatment. But it would require time, resources. Then we should do it, Ben said firmly. When we get back to Earth. We should help them. Gwen smiled, pride in her eyes. Even after everything Vilgax did? Especially after everything he did, Ben replied. We save planets. We help species in danger. That's what being a hero means. He looked at his friends. And it's what we do best. As the escape pod drifted through space, Earth growing larger in the viewport, Ben thought about birthdays and endings and new beginnings. Vilgax was gone, for now, at least. But the lessons remained. The fight was never truly over, just changing form. Ben touched the Omnitrix, feeling its familiar weight on his wrist. Whatever came next, he would be ready. They all would. Happy birthday to me, he murmured with a small smile. Chapter 2, Desperate Measures. 2 weeks after their narrow escape from Vilgax's ship, Ben slouched in a chair at Plumber HQ, staring at holographic displays filled with data he barely understood. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he couldn't stop. Not when the threat still loomed. Anything? Gwen asked, setting a cup of smoothie beside him. Ben rubbed his face. Nothing. It's like Vilgax's ship just ceased to exist. Technically, that's exactly what happened, Gwen reminded him. Temporal implosion, remember? Yeah, but something doesn't add up. Ben sipped the smoothie gratefully. Vilgax planned everything too carefully. The attack on Earth, the atmospheric devices, all of it. He wouldn't just end like that. Kevin walked in, covered in mechanical grease. Found something in the escape pod's data logs. That temporal implosion. It wasn't an accident. Ben sat up straight. What? Someone triggered it manually. Last second override. Kevin wiped his hands on a rag. Guess who had that kind of access? Vilgax, Ben muttered. But why would he destroy his own ship? Rook entered, his uniform looking pristine despite the long hours everyone had been putting in. Perhaps because destruction was not the intended outcome. He placed a data pad in front of Ben. On it, calculations and sensor readings scrolled past. The temporal implosion created a specific energy signature, Rook explained. One that matches known coordinates for the null void, Ben. Finished, realization dawning. He didn't die. He escaped to the null void. With potentially enough technology and resources to rebuild, Gwen added grimly. Ben stood up, suddenly energized. We need to go after him. Now, before he has time to, whoa, slow down, hero. Kevin raised his hands. The null void is huge. Without exact coordinates, we'd be searching forever. Kevin's assessment is correct, Rook agreed. Additionally, Magister Tennyson still requires your assistance with the atmospheric device cleanup. Ben glanced at another screen where teams of plumbers worked to retrieve and neutralize the thousands of devices Vilgax had placed in Earth's atmosphere. Nearly 70% had been recovered, but the remaining units proved more challenging, hidden in remote or hostile environments. Fine, Ben conceded. But the moment we've handled the devices, we're going after Vilgax. The door slid open, and Grandpa Max entered. He moved slower than before, still recovering from his injuries, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. That won't be necessary, Max announced. We've received a transmission. Ben felt a chill. From Vilgax. Max shook his head. From Siphon. Siphon? Kevin scoffed. That bootlicker's still around? Apparently, Max confirmed, activating the main view screen. He sent this an hour ago. Siphon's gaunt face appeared on screen. He looked haggard, with new scars crossing his pale features. Ben Tennyson, he began, his voice lacking its usual obsequious tone. My master is gone. Lost between dimensions. But his work continues. Siphon's camera panned to show a laboratory filled with equipment. The atmospheric devices were merely phase 1. Even now, what remains of my master's fleet approaches Earth with a weapon beyond your comprehension. That's not Vilgax's typical ship design, Rook noted, pointing to vessels visible through a viewport behind Siphon. You have 3 Earth days before they arrive, Siphon continued. 3 days to surrender the Omnitrix, or watch as your world is remade on a molecular level. The transmission ended abruptly. Can we trace it? Ben asked. Already tried, Max replied. It was bounced through 17 different relay stations. But our deep space scanners have detected approaching vessels matching those in the transmission. So what's the plan? Gwen asked. Ben paced, mind racing. We need more information about this molecular weapon. And we need allies. He turned to Max. Grandpa, can you contact Tetrax? And the Galactic Enforcers? Already on it, Max nodded. But interstellar communications are still spotty after Vilgax's attack on our relay stations. Ben looked at his team. Rook, you and Kevin keep working on the atmospheric device cleanup. Gwen, see if you can use your mana to locate Siphon or any trace of Vilgax in the null void. What about you? Gwen asked. Ben tapped the Omnitrix. I'm going to get us some help from the smartest guy in 5 galaxies. Galvan Prime gleamed like a jeweled mechanism against the black of space. Ben piloted the plumber ship through the planet's automated defense grid, authorization codes granting him clearance to the most secure scientific world in the galaxy. As the ship landed on a platform jutting from Asmatha's personal laboratory, Ben couldn't help feeling a twinge of awe. Despite years of working with the Galvan genius, visits to his home world remained rare. A security drone met Ben at the landing pad. "Follow," it instructed in a mechanical voice. Ben trailed the floating device through pristine corridors filled with technology so advanced it made Earth's best efforts look primitive. Galvan scientists scurried about, most sparing him curious glances before returning to their work. The drone led him to a vast laboratory where Azimuth stood on a hovering platform, examining the quantum encryption key they'd used against Vilgax. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," Azimuth said without looking up. 3 days before a potential molecular restructuring of your planet. Cutting it rather close. Don't you think? "Good to see you too," Ben replied dryly. "How did you know about the threat?" "Please." Azimuth finally turned to face him. "I monitor all transmissions regarding significant threats to inhabited worlds. Particularly those involving former apprentices." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Former apprentices? You mean Siphon?" Before he became Vilgax's sycophant, Siphon studied briefly on Galvan Prime, Azimuth explained, his tone suggesting the memory displeased him. His brilliance was matched only by his moral flexibility. "So you know what this molecular weapon might be?" "I have theories." Azimuth gestured to a holographic display. "Based on the technology visible in the transmission and certain energy signatures our sensors detected, Siphon appears to be utilizing principles similar to my own Helix project." "The one that created the hybrid?" "Great." Ben rubbed the back of his neck. "So he's going to mutate Earth somehow?" "Not mutation. Transformation." Azimuth expanded the hologram to show molecular structures shifting. "If my suspicions are correct, this weapon could reconfigure Earth's very composition to make it uninhabitable for terrestrial life but perfect for chimera sui generis biology." Terraforming, Ben realized. He's going to turn Earth into a second homeworld for Vilgax's species. Precisely. Azimuth closed the display. "Quite ingenious, actually. If Vilgax's people truly are suffering genetic degradation, a new planet calibrated precisely to their biological needs could accelerate their recovery." "At the cost of all life on Earth," Ben reminded him sharply. Azimuth raised a hand. "I wasn't complimenting the moral dimensions, merely the scientific approach." Ben paced, processing this new information. "So how do we stop it?" "With great difficulty," Azimuth replied. "A molecular reconfiguration weapon of this scale would require incredible power and precise calibration. Interrupting either would prevent the transformation. Then we need to find those ships and destroy the weapon before it reaches Earth." "A typically direct approach," Azimuth sighed. "But in this case, potentially effective. However, you cannot do it alone." The Galvan hopped down from his platform, walking to another section of the laboratory. Ben followed, having to stoop to avoid hitting his head on the Galvan-sized doorways. "I've been working on this since our encounter with Vilgax," Azimuth explained, approaching a sealed container. "Consider it a birthday gift." Belated. The container opened, revealing the Omnitrix floating in an energy field. Ben looked at his wrist in confusion, where the Omnitrix still sat. "But, not a replacement," Azimuth clarified. "An upgrade. Your current Omnitrix has served you well, but its architecture was designed when you were a child. You're an adult now, with adult responsibilities." Ben carefully removed the device from his wrist, feeling strangely vulnerable without its weight. He placed it in Azimuth's waiting hands, watching as the Galvan brought the two versions together. A flash of green light filled the room. When it faded, a new Omnitrix floated in the energy field. Sleeker, with more pronounced angular features and a deeper green coloration. "The Omnitrix 2.0, Azimuth announced with a rare hint of pride. "Improved transformation stability, expanded genetic library, and most importantly," he paused, looking directly at Ben, "enhanced user control." "Meaning?" "Meaning, Ben Tennyson, that while the previous Omnitrix protected you from yourself, this version acknowledges your growth. The training wheels, so to speak, are off." Ben reached for the device, hesitating just before his fingers made contact. No time limits. Standard transformations remain limited to prevent DNA strain, but you'll find the recovery time significantly reduced, Azimuth explained. Additionally, the master control is more accessible than before. Ben's eyes widened. You're giving me master control? After all these years of saying I wasn't ready? I'm giving you the ability to earn it. Azimuth corrected. The Omnitrix will evaluate your decisions, your control, your judgment. Prove worthy, and full functionality will unlock progressively. Ben took the new Omnitrix, feeling it automatically bond to his wrist. The familiar weight returned, but different somehow, more balanced, more in tune with his movements. Thanks, Azimuth. This'll definitely help against Siphon. It is merely a tool, Ben Tennyson. As it has always been. Azimuth turned back to his workbench. Your true strength lies in how you use it. Ben glanced at the time on a nearby Galvan display. I should head back to Earth. We need to prepare. Not yet. Azimuth activated another console. There's someone else you should speak with first. A doorway slid open, revealing a Galvan female Ben had met only once before. Zenith? Ben said in surprise, recognizing Azimuth's former partner. Ben Tennyson. She nodded in greeting. I've been analyzing Chimera sui generis genetic samples. There may be a way to neutralize Siphon's weapon by targeting specific molecular resonances in the reconfiguration matrix. In English? We can create a counterwave, she explained patiently, that would disrupt the transformation process. That's great news, Ben said cautiously, sensing a catch. So what's the problem? Azimuth and Zenith exchanged glances. The counterwave must be generated from within the weapon itself, Azimuth explained. Someone would need to infiltrate Siphon's flagship and reconfigure the primary emitter. While it's powering up, Zenith added. Any earlier, and Siphon would simply correct the sabotage. So a suicide mission, Ben concluded flatly. Not necessarily, Azimuth countered. With the right transformation and precise timing. I'll do it, Ben said without hesitation. We expected nothing less, Zenith replied with a small smile. Which is why we've prepared this. She handed Ben what looked like a small green data crystal. Upload this to the Omnitrix, she instructed. It contains the counterwave frequency calculations and a new transformation specifically engineered for this mission. Ben raised an eyebrow. A new alien? What does it do? Something unique, Azimuth said cryptically. Let's hope you never have to find out. Ben returned to Earth to find preparations already underway. The Plumber base hummed with activity as agents coordinated global defense strategies. Screens displayed approaching ships, now visible to Earth's deep space telescopes. 3 cruisers and what looks like a command vessel, Max explained, pointing to the largest ship. Smaller than Vilgax's flagship, but still substantial. Any response to our hails? Ben asked. None, Rook reported. They maintain constant speed toward Earth. Arrival estimated in 47 hours. What about our allies? Ben turned to Gwen, who'd been coordinating with off-world contacts. Tetrax is on his way with reinforcements, she confirmed. The Galactic Enforcers too, though Ultimos is still recovering from Vilgax's attack on their headquarters. The Hybrid declined involvement, Kevin added. Something about primitive species conflicts. Ben touched the new Omnitrix, feeling its subtle differences under his fingers. Azimuth says Siphon's weapon will molecularly transform Earth to make it habitable for Vilgax's species. Terraforming? Max frowned. That would require incredible power. And precise calibration, Ben agreed. Which gives us 2 points of attack. We need to disable the power source or disrupt the calibration. Or both, Gwen suggested. Exactly. Ben activated a holographic display. Azimuth and Zenith provided a counterwave formula that could disrupt the transformation process, but it needs to be uploaded directly to the weapons control systems. So we need a strike team, Kevin concluded. We need multiple strike teams, Ben corrected. One to handle the cruisers, one to create a diversion, and one to infiltrate the command ship and upload the counterwave. And who's doing the infiltration? Max asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Ben smiled grimly. Who do you think? The next hours blurred into a frenzy of planning and preparation. Earth's defense forces mobilized worldwide, ready to engage any drones or ground forces Siphon might deploy. Meanwhile, the plumbers coordinated with their off-world allies to form a space-based defense line. Ben found himself in the rare position of military strategist, working with Max and other senior plumbers to develop their approach. The responsibility weighed heavily, but years of experience had prepared him for this moment. As evening fell, Ben slipped away from the command center, needing a moment alone. He found himself on the headquarters roof, watching stars appear in the darkening sky, stars that now harbored an approaching threat. "Thought I'd find you up here," came Gwen's voice behind him. She joined him at the railing, her red hair catching the last light of sunset. "Just needed some air," Ben explained. "Too many people asking what alien I'm going to use to save the world." "And what did you tell them?" "That I haven't decided yet." He glanced at her. "Truth is, I'm not sure any of them are enough this time. Not even the new ones Azimuth gave me." Gwen studied him carefully. "This isn't just about Siphon, is it?" Ben sighed. "Vilgax is still out there, Gwen. Somewhere in the null void. And even if we stop Siphon, even if we save Earth again, it feels like we're just treating symptoms, not the disease. The disease being Vilgax. The disease being that someone will always want the Omnitrix." Ben stared at the device. Always be willing to threaten entire worlds to get it. Maybe the real solution is getting rid of it altogether. Gwen placed a hand on his arm. "Ben, the Omnitrix isn't just a weapon or a target. It's a symbol. Of understanding between species, of unity. Isn't that what Azimuth created it for?" "Yeah, and you've used it that way," she continued. "How many alien species have you helped? How many threats have you stopped because you had the right transformation at the right moment?" Ben didn't answer, lost in thought. "The Omnitrix belongs with you, Ben. Not because you're perfect, but because you try to do the right thing. Even when it's hard." She squeezed his arm gently. "Especially when it's hard." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Ben's communicator beeped. "Ben, we've got incoming," Max's voice announced. "Not Siphon's fleet, it's Tetrax. And he's brought company." Tetrax's crystalline ship gleamed as it settled onto the landing pad outside Plumber HQ. The Petrosapian bounty hunter emerged first, his diamond form reflecting the floodlights. "Ben. Tennyson," he greeted with a nod. "It's been too long." "Good to see you, Tetrax." Ben clasped the alien's hand. "Thanks for coming." "Your battles have saved countless worlds," Tetrax replied simply. "Mine owes you a particular debt." Behind him, more figures emerged from the ship. Ben recognized the imposing forms of Ultimos and Synaptac of the Galactic Enforcers, along with several species he'd encountered in his years as a plumber. Most surprising was a tall, blue-skinned figure in ornate armor. "Rian Rasik?" Ben exclaimed, recognizing the hybrid commander he'd once saved. "Tennyson," the hybrid acknowledged stiffly. "The council declined involvement." "I did not." "I thought hybrid didn't meddle in lesser species affairs," Ben said, mimicking their haughty tone. "We do not," Rian Rasik confirmed. "However, personal debts transcend species protocol." Ben grinned. "Well, I'm glad you're here. We need all the help we can get." As the allies gathered in the briefing room, the scope of their challenge became clear. Siphon's fleet had accelerated, cutting their arrival time to just over 36 hours. More concerning, the ships had deployed a defensive screen that would make direct assault difficult. Their weapon is housed here, Tetrax indicated on the holographic display. In the command vessel's central chamber. Heavily guarded, multiple security layers. That's where I need to upload the counterwave, Ben explained. But we'll need to deal with those cruisers first. They're carrying enough firepower to level cities if they break through to Earth. My ship can engage one cruiser, Tetrax offered. Perhaps two with support. The Galactic Enforcers will handle another, Ultimos declared. That still leaves the command ship, Gwen pointed out. Kevin stepped forward. I've been working on something that might help. He activated a side display showing schematics for a sleek spacecraft. Modified the tech from Arjet's faster-than-light engine. It's not pretty, but it's fast and it's got teeth. How many can it transport? Rook asked. 6, max, Kevin replied. Tight quarters. Ben studied the plans. That could work for the infiltration team. While the others engaged the cruisers, we slipped through to the command ship. Max nodded slowly. It's risky, but it's our best option. Kevin, how soon can this ship be ready? It's already built, Kevin grinned. Been working on it since we got back from Vilgax's ship. Call it a hobby. A hobby? Gwen raised an eyebrow. You built a spaceship as a hobby? What? Some guys restore classic cars. I restore classic spaceship designs. Ben couldn't help but laugh, the tension breaking momentarily. Alright, we have our approach. Tetrax and the Galactic Enforcers engage the cruisers. Meanwhile, our infiltration team, hold up, Max interrupted. Who exactly is on this infiltration team? Me, obviously, Ben started. Gwen for her mana abilities, Kevin for tech support, and Rook because he's the best shot in the plumbers. That's only 4, Rian Rasik noted. The vessel accommodates 6. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I'm going too, Max finally said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Grandpa, you're still recovering, Ben protested. I'm well enough to hold a blaster, Max countered. And I know more about Chimera Sway generous ship layouts than anyone here. Ben wanted to argue further, but the determination in Max's eyes stopped him. Fine. That's 5. 6, came a small voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a diminutive figure entering the briefing room. Azimuth? Ben blinked in surprise. When did you get here? Just now, the Galvan replied. And before you object, the counterwave formula is complex. You'll need someone who understands the science to ensure proper implementation. Not to mention, Zenith added, appearing beside him, the new transformation we provided requires proper calibration. Ben looked around at his assembled team, family, friends, allies. Each bringing unique skills and perspectives. Despite the dire circumstances, he felt a surge of confidence. All right then, he nodded. 6 it is. We leave in 12 hours. Everyone get some rest, tomorrow, we save the world. Rest, however, proved elusive. Ben tossed and turned in his quarters, mind racing with possibilities and contingencies. Around 3 in the morning, he gave up, heading to the training room instead. He found it already occupied. Kevin stood surrounded by holographic projections of various alien tech systems, manipulating components with practiced ease. Couldn't sleep either? Ben asked, joining him. Kevin glanced up briefly. Trying to get a feel for Chimera Sway generous security protocols. Based on what we salvaged from those drones, Siphons upgraded everything. Ben watched as Kevin disassembled and reassembled a virtual lock mechanism. You've gotten good at this stuff. Had to, Kevin shrugged. Can't absorb energy anymore, remember? So I adapted. Knowledge is its own kind of power. Speaking of power. Ben hesitated. I got an upgrade from Azimuth. New Omnitrix. Kevin finally looked away from his work, eyebrow raised. No kidding. What's it do? Honestly? I'm not entirely sure yet. Faster recharge, better control. And apparently some new aliens. Tried them yet? Ben shook his head. Saving them for when we really need them. Kevin nodded in understanding. Smart. Element of surprise and all that. He returned to the holographic tech. You know, I've been thinking about what happens after we deal with Siphon. What do you mean? I mean, Vilgax is still out there somewhere. And if what he said about his species dying out is true. Kevin let the thought hang. You think we should help them, Ben realized. I think we should consider it, Kevin corrected. Look, I've been the bad guy, right? Did some pretty terrible things. But I got a second chance. Maybe not everyone deserves one, but an entire species. Ben leaned against a console, considering Kevin's words. Azimuth seemed to think it was possible. Using the uncorrupted chimera sway generous DNA in the Omnitrix to create a cure for their genetic problems. Without turning Earth into Vilgax Jr., Kevin added. Yeah. Ben ran a hand through his hair. Let's focus on stopping Siphon first. Then we can worry about saving Vilgax's people. Kevin closed down the holographic display. Deal. Now, wanna see what this new ship of mine can do in the simulator? Ben grinned. Thought you'd never ask. Dawn broke with renewed urgency. Siphon's fleet had accelerated again, arrival now projected in 28 hours. The command center buzzed with activity as final preparations were made. Tetrax's ship departed first, carrying additional plumber agents and equipment to establish a forward defense perimeter. The Galactic Enforcers followed shortly after, Ultimos promising a glorious defense of Earth worthy of legend. Kevin led Ben and the infiltration team to a secure hangar deep beneath Plumber HQ. As the doors slid open, Ben got his first look at their transportation. Whoa, he breathed. The ship was smaller than he'd expected, but sleek and predatory looking. Its hull gleamed with a dark metallic finish, broken by glowing green energy lines that pulsed with quiet power. Meet the Rust Bucket 4, Kevin announced proudly. Fast, stealthy, and packed with enough firepower to make a Tetraman jealous. You named it after Grandpa's RV? Ben asked, amused. Seemed appropriate, Kevin shrugged. Considering how many adventures started in that old rust bucket. Max approached, running an appreciative hand along the hull. Nice work, Kevin. Your father would have been proud. Kevin's expression softened momentarily at the mention of his father. Thanks. Gwen and Rook arrived next, followed by Azimuth, who rode on Zenith's shoulder. The Galvan surveyed the ship with a critical eye. Impressive for Earth technology, he conceded. Though the power coupling to the main drive seems inefficient. It's a feature, not a bug, Kevin retorted. Gives us more maneuverability in tight spaces. Azimuth harumphed but said nothing more. As they boarded, Ben was surprised by the ship's interior. Despite its compact external appearance, clever design had maximized the available space. The cockpit accommodated Kevin and Rook at the controls, with stations for the others arranged efficiently behind. Artificial gravity, atmospheric shields, and stealth systems all online, Rook reported, his fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. Weapons hot, engines primed, Kevin added. We're good to go. Ben took his seat, strapping in securely. Last chance to back out, he offered, looking around at his team. Not happening, Gwen replied firmly. Wouldn't miss it, Max agreed. Azimuth merely gave Ben a look that clearly conveyed his opinion of such a question. All right then. Ben nodded to Kevin. Take us up. The hangar doors above them slid open, revealing a circular shaft leading to the surface. The Rust Bucket 4 rose smoothly, its engines barely a whisper despite the power they contained. Engaging stealth field, Rook announced as they cleared the hangar. The view outside the viewport shimmed briefly as the stealth technology activated, bending light around the ship's hull. Setting course for intercept, Kevin added. ETA to Siphon's fleet, 4 hours, 20 minutes. As Earth fell away beneath them, Ben found himself studying his team. Each focused on their tasks, determined and professional. But he could see the tension in their postures, the weight of responsibility in their eyes. This wasn't their first world-saving mission, but something felt different this time. Perhaps it was the directness of the threat, or the personal nature of their opponent. Or perhaps it was simply that Ben, now 18, viewed these responsibilities with more mature eyes than he had as a child. Incoming transmission from Tetrax, Rook announced, interrupting Ben's thoughts. The Petrosapien's face appeared on a nearby screen. Ben, we've established the perimeter. Ultimos and his team are in position. But we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the command ship. Define unusual, Azimuth requested, moving closer to the screen. Chronoton particles, Tetrax replied grimly. Similar to what we detected during the implosion of Vilgax's ship. Ben exchanged alarmed glances with his team. They're using the same time technology. It appears so, Tetrax confirmed. If they've salvaged Maltruant's components as Azimuth suggested. Then the weapon could be far more dangerous than we anticipated, Azimuth finished. Molecular transformation is one thing. Temporal molecular transformation is quite another. What does that mean exactly? Gwen asked. It means, Zenith explained, that the transformation could propagate backward and forward through time. Earth wouldn't just change, it would have always been changed, from a point of Siphon's choosing. That's not possible, Max said, though his tone lacked conviction. The temporal laws can be circumvented with sufficient power and the right technology, Azimuth countered. We must assume the worst. Ben felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. We need to move faster. Kevin, can we get more speed out of this thing? Kevin's hands moved across the controls, making adjustments. I can push the engines to about 120%. Any more and we risk burning out the coolant systems. Do it, Ben ordered. Rook, contact the plumbers. Tell them to be ready for any temporal anomalies. What would those look like, exactly? Rook asked. Like reality itself shifting, Azimuth replied ominously. Objects changing form or composition without apparent cause. People's memories becoming inconsistent with recorded history. Great, Kevin muttered. So basically, total chaos. Pretty much, Ben agreed. Which is why we need to stop Siphon before he can activate the weapon. The ship accelerated, stars blurring slightly outside the viewports as the engines pushed to their limits. Ben checked the time, 26 hours until Siphon's fleet reached Earth. 4 hours until they intercepted. Every minute counted. Ben, Gwen said quietly, moving to sit beside him. We should discuss contingencies. If we can't stop the weapon. We will, Ben insisted. But if we can't, she pressed gently. What's our backup plan? Ben hesitated, unwilling to voice the thoughts that had been troubling him. There's one option, he finally admitted, lowering his voice. Alien X could potentially reverse any changes to Earth, even temporal ones. But you'd need agreement from Serena and Bellicus, Gwen reminded him. And they're not exactly cooperative. Azimuth's modifications might help with that, Ben explained. He said I have more control now. Enough to overcome two cosmic entities who argue about everything? I don't know, Ben admitted. But it's our last resort. Gwen studied him for a moment, then nodded. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that. 3 hours into their journey, Kevin called Ben to the cockpit. We've got a problem, he announced, pointing to a sensor display. The fleets accelerated again. New ETA to Earth, 15 hours. That's half the time we expected, Ben frowned. Can we intercept before they reach Earth? Barely, Kevin replied. But there's more. Look at these energy readings from the command ship. The display showed massive power fluctuations, far larger than before. They're powering up the weapon early, Rook observed. No, Azimuth disagreed, studying the readings. They're testing it. These are calibration pulses. Ben clenched his fists. How much time do we have? Based on these power curves, Azimuth calculated, the weapon will be fully operational in approximately 6 hours. Before they even reach Earth, Gwen realized. They don't need proximity, Zenith explained. Not with chronoton enhancement. They could trigger the transformation from their current position. Then we need to move now. Ben turned to Kevin. How close are we? Close enough for what I'm thinking, Kevin replied with a grim smile. Hold on to something. Without further warning, he pushed the engines beyond their recommended limits. The ship lurched forward, acceleration pressing everyone into their seats. Warning lights flashed across the controls, but Kevin ignored them, his focus absolute. Approaching target in 15 minutes, he announced through gritted teeth. Stealth systems failing due to engine stress. They'll detect us, Rook warned. Good, Ben replied. Let them. We need their attention anyway. Max moved to a weapons station. I'll handle defense. Rook, you take targeting. Kevin, focus on getting us to that command ship. Ben turned to Gwen. We'll need a shield once we're inside. Something to buy us time while we locate the weapon. Already on it, she assured him, her hands glowing with mana as she prepared. Azimuth approached Ben, looking uncharacteristically concerned. The counterwave formula may need adjustments based on these new readings. And the special transformation. What about it? Ben asked when the Galvan trailed off. Azimuth hesitated. It was designed for a specific scenario. With these changes, I cannot guarantee its effectiveness. We'll make it work, Ben assured him, though uncertainty gnawed at his confidence. We always do. The first shots came without warning. Energy beams lanced past their ship as the outer defense drones of Siphon's fleet detected their approach. Taking evasive action, Kevin called, banking the ship sharply. The vessel responded beautifully, dancing between energy blasts with surprising agility. Return fire, Max ordered. Rook targeted the nearest drones, weapon systems locking on with precision. Tetrax, we're engaging early, Ben reported over the comm, fleet accelerated, weapon powering up. We need support. On our way, Tetrax's voice crackled through the static. ETA 20 minutes. We might not have 20 minutes, Ben muttered. The view screen filled with the imposing sight of Siphon's fleet. 3 cruisers formed a protective triangle around the larger command vessel. All 4 ships bristled with weapons, and swarms of drones circled like mechanical insects. New plan, Ben announced. We're going in hot. Kevin, take us straight at the command ship. Through that? Kevin gestured at the screen. Through that, Ben confirmed. Rook, target their sensory arrays. Gwen, I need a mana shield around our engines. What are you planning? Max asked. Ben's hand hovered over the Omnitrix. Something stupid. When I give the word, open the airlock. Ben, Gwen started to protest. Trust me, he cut her off. Kevin, how close can you get us before they lock weapons? About 5,000 meters, Kevin estimated. Any closer and their auto-targeting systems will tear us apart. Get us to 5001, Ben instructed. Then cut engines and drift. Kevin exchanged glances with the others, then nodded. Your funeral. Literally, maybe. The ship accelerated toward the fleet, weapons firing continuously to clear smaller drones from their path. Alarms blared as enemy targeting systems locked onto them. 5,500 meters, Kevin counted down. 5,200, 5,100. Ready, Ben. Gwen asked, mana glowing around her hands. Ready. Ben selected an alien on the Omnitrix dial. Kevin, now. Cutting engines, Kevin confirmed. The ship's forward momentum carried them toward the fleet as their energy signature diminished. Opening airlock, Rook announced. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, feeling the familiar rush of transformation. Jetray. He shot through the open airlock, aerodynamic form cutting through space toward the command ship. Behind him, he knew the Rust Bucket 4 would be powering up again, ready to follow in his wake. Ben weaved between energy blasts, his amphibian form's natural speed making him nearly impossible to target. As he neared the command ship, he spotted a weakness, an external sensor array with minimal protection. I need a distraction, he called back to the ship. Something big, in the opposite quadrant. On it, Max's voice replied in his communicator. Seconds later, a barrage of missiles streaked from the Rust Bucket 4, detonating against the command ship's lower hull. As predicted, defensive systems swiveled to address the new threat. Ben shot toward the undefended sensor array, transforming mid-flight. Swamp fire. He clung to the hull, plant-based form surviving the vacuum of space. Quickly, he generated a highly combustible gas mixture, forcing it into the sensor housing. Fire in the hole, he muttered, igniting the gas with a spark from his palm. The explosion tore a hole in the command ship's hull. Warning klaxons would be blaring inside, but Ben knew they'd register it as external damage from the missile barrage, not a deliberate breach. He transformed again. Big chill. Phasing through the damaged hull, Ben entered the command ship. Inside, chaos reigned as crew responded to the attack. He remained intangible, drifting unseen through corridors until he located what he needed, an external docking port. I'm in, he reported over his communicator. Port side, tertiary docking bay. It's unguarded during the alert. On our way, Kevin replied. Entering defensive perimeter now. Ben materialized briefly to disable security systems at the docking port, then resumed intangibility as he waited. Minutes later, the Rust Bucket 4 appeared, maneuvering skillfully to dock despite ongoing weapons fire. The airlock cycled open, and his team rushed through, weapons ready. Ben solidified beside them, reverting to human form. That, Kevin declared, was insane. Even for you. But effective, Rook noted, checking a scanner. We are approximately 2 decks below the command center. And the weapon? Ben asked. Azimuth consulted a device he'd brought. 3 decks up, central chamber. Heavily shielded. So, we split up. Gwen suggested. Ben nodded. Grandpa, you and Rook head for the command center. Disable their communications and weapons if you can. Kevin, you and Gwen come with me to the weapon chamber. Azimuth and Zenith too. What's our timeline? Max asked. Based on power readings, Azimuth replied, approximately 40 minutes until the weapon reaches full capacity. Then we move fast and we move quiet, Ben instructed. Comms on, keep each other updated. As they prepared to separate, Max placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. Be careful in there. This isn't just Siphon we're dealing with. If Vilgax truly planned this. I know, Grandpa, Ben assured him. We'll be ready for anything. The journey through the ship proved more challenging than anticipated. Despite the external damage and ongoing battle, internal security remained tight. Twice they had to backtrack to avoid patrols, and once Kevin had to hack a security door that should have been on emergency protocols. Something's off, Gwen whispered as they crouched in a maintenance tunnel. These aren't standard security procedures. It's almost like. Kevin began. They were expecting us, Ben finished grimly. Siphon knew we'd try to infiltrate. Azimuth, riding on Ben's shoulder, frowned. That would explain the accelerated timeline. He wanted to force our hand. But why? Zenith wondered. What advantage does he gain? Ben had a sinking feeling in his stomach. He wants the Omnitrix. Just like Vilgax always did. This whole attack might be a ploy to get me on his ship. Where he controls the environment, Kevin realized. Where he's got home field advantage. Whether it's a trap or not, Gwen reasoned, we still need to disable that weapon. Ben checked the Omnitrix, fully charged and ready. Agreed. But we stay extra alert. No splitting up further than we have to. They continued through the ship, eventually reaching a heavily reinforced door marked with warning symbols in multiple languages. This is it, Azimuth confirmed. The weapon chamber lies beyond. Kevin examined the door's security system. Triple-layered encryption. This'll take time to crack. Time we don't have, Ben replied. Stand back. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through options before selecting one of his most powerful forms. Humongousaur. The transformation complete, Ben grew to his maximum size, straining against the corridor's ceiling. With a roar, he grabbed the reinforced door and pulled, muscles straining against the advanced alloys. Metal groaned, then screamed as the door tore from its frame. Alarms immediately blared throughout the ship. So much for stealth, Kevin muttered, absorbing metal from the broken door to armor himself. We're past that now, Ben replied, ducking through the opening he'd created. Beyond lay a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing device unlike anything Ben had seen before. Crystalline. Components rotated around a central core of swirling energy, chronoton particles visible as flashes of light within the maelstrom. Cables and conduits connected the device to the ship's power systems, and holographic displays showed Earth from multiple angles. The molecular reconfiguration weapon, Azimuth breathed. More advanced than I anticipated. Can you disable it? Ben asked. Before Azimuth could answer, slow applause echoed through the chamber. From behind the weapon's control console, a familiar figure emerged. Ben Tennyson, Siphon greeted, looking more confident than Ben had ever seen him. Right on schedule. Siphon, Ben growled. Turn off the weapon. Now. I think not. Siphon gestured, and a dozen armed guards emerged from concealed positions around the chamber. You've arrived exactly when I wanted you to. Ben tensed, ready to charge despite the weapons trained on them. You knew we were coming. Of course. Siphon smiled thinly. Why else accelerate the timeline? Why else power up the weapon early? I needed you here, Ben Tennyson. You and your new Omnitrix. Ben felt a chill. How did you know about the upgrade? I have my sources. Siphon stepped closer to the weapon console. Did you really think Azimuth's work goes unmonitored? Especially regarding his precious Omnitrix. Enough talk, Kevin snarled, hands morphing into blades. Shut it down or we shut you down. Siphon laughed. Such bravado. But ultimately futile. He pressed a sequence on the console. The weapon's components rotated faster, energy building visibly. In approximately 20 minutes, Earth will be transformed at the molecular level. Not just now, but throughout its timeline. It will have always been a chimera sui generis world. Why? Gwen demanded. Vilgax is gone. What do you gain from this? Gone. Siphon's smile widened. Is that what you believe? A side door slid open, and Ben's blood ran cold as a familiar figure entered the chamber. Hello, Tennyson, Vilgax rumbled. Did you miss me? The chimera sui generis warlord looked different than Ben remembered. The chronoton technology that had been integrated into his body appeared more extensive, with pulsing red energy coursing through transparent tubes throughout his form. His eyes glowed with the same energy, and his movements had a strange, fluid quality, as if he existed slightly out of sync with normal spacetime. Vilgax, Ben growled. I should have known you'd slither your way back somehow. The temporal implosion, Azimuth realized. It wasn't an escape to the null void. It was a calculated temporal displacement. Very good, Azimuth, Vilgax acknowledged. Always the quickest to understand. Yes, I used the implosion to project myself forward in time, bypassing your pitiful attempts to track me. Master, Siphon bowed slightly. The weapon reaches optimal power in 18 minutes. Excellent. Vilgax turned his attention back to Ben. Just enough time for you to witness the culmination of centuries of planning. Centuries? Ben frowned. What are you talking about? Did you think this began with our first encounter, Tennyson? That my pursuit of the Omnitrix was merely about power? Vilgax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed strangely. No. The Omnitrix has always been the key to my species' salvation. Azimuth knew this when he created it. Ben glanced at Azimuth, who looked troubled. Is that true? Partially, the Galvan admitted reluctantly. The Chimera Sway generous genetic degradation was one of many problems I hoped the Omnitrix might eventually address. But Vilgax's methods were necessary. Vilgax snarled. After you refused to help directly. After the Galactic Council quarantined our world rather than assist us. After watching generation after generation grow weaker, our numbers dwindling. For a moment, genuine anguish crossed Vilgax's features. Then his expression hardened again. But soon, none of that will matter. The weapon will rewrite Earth's molecular structure through time itself. A perfect world for my species, existing throughout history. The billions of humans who would never have existed will be replaced by billions of my kind who would never have died. You can't just erase an entire species. Ben protested. Can't I? Vilgax countered. How many species have gone extinct while the Galactic Council debated, while Azimuth calculated the political ramifications of intervention? At least my way is quick. Painless. And completely wrong, Ben insisted. There are better solutions. We can help your people without destroying Earth. Too late for that, Tennyson. Vilgax turned to the weapon console. The process has already begun. Indeed, the weapon now pulsed with increasing intensity, the chronoton field expanding visibly. On the holographic displays, Earth appeared to shimmer slightly, as if seen through heat waves. We need to act now, Azimuth whispered urgently to Ben. The counterwave, Vilgax's enhanced hearing caught the Galvan's words. Counterwave? Another futile gesture. He gestured to his guards. Seize them. The armed guards moved forward, but Ben's team was ready. Gwen threw up a mana shield, blocking the initial volley of energy blasts. Kevin charged forward, metallic form deflecting additional fire as he engaged the closest guards. Ben. Gwen called. The weapon. Ben nodded, transforming again. Diamond Head. Crystalline projectiles shot from his hands, targeting the weapon's exposed components. To his dismay, they disintegrated upon contact with the chronoton field. Conventional attacks won't work, Azimuth warned. The temporal field disrupts physical matter. Then what will work? Ben demanded. The counterwave, but we need direct access to the control systems. Ben surveyed the chaotic battlefield. Kevin had dispatched several guards but was now facing reinforcements pouring in through side entrances. Gwen maintained a protective barrier around herself, Azimuth, and Zenith, but energy blasts were beginning to penetrate her defenses. Vilgax and Siphon remained by the weapon console, protected by the chronoton field and additional guards. Ben's communicator crackled. Ben. Max's voice came through, punctuated by weapons fire. We've reached the command center, but it's heavily defended. Rook's been injured. Grandpa, we've got bigger problems, Ben replied. Vilgax is here. He survived the implosion. Vilgax. Max's voice turned grim. Ben, listen carefully. If he's integrated chronoton technology, he'll be vulnerable to phase-shifted energy pulses. The same weakness as the Chronosopians. Phase-shifted energy. Ben's eyes widened in realization. Got it, Grandpa. Hold your position, we'll handle this. Ben cycled through the Omnitrix again, searching for the right transformation. Clockwork. The bulky, copper-colored form of a Chronosapien took shape, complete with key-like protrusion and glass chest plate. Ben immediately felt the temporal energies flowing through the chamber, sensing them in a way his human form could not. Clever, Tennyson, Vilgax acknowledged. But not clever enough. The warlord raised his arm, and the chronoton tubes throughout his body pulsed brightly. A wave of temporal energy washed over the chamber, slowing everything to a fraction of normal speed, except Vilgax himself and, to Ben's relief, his clockwork form. As you can see, Vilgax continued, walking casually through the frozen battle, I've mastered certain Chronosapien abilities myself. Not all of them, Ben replied. He focused his energy, firing a beam from his chest plate directly at the weapon. The beam connected, causing the weapon's rotation to stutter momentarily. But Vilgax quickly adjusted the console, stabilizing it. A temporary setback, the warlord dismissed. The transformation continues. In 15 minutes, Earth's history changes forever. Why are you telling me this? Ben demanded, circling to keep Vilgax away from his immobilized friends. Why not just kill us all and be done with it? Because I want you to understand, Vilgax replied, surprising Ben with his earnestness. I want you to see that this isn't merely vengeance or conquest. This is survival. This is justice for my people. Justice? Ben scoffed. You're committing genocide. I'm preventing one. Vilgax roared. My species faces extinction, Tennyson. What would you do if humanity faced the same fate? What wouldn't you sacrifice to save your kind? The question gave Ben pause, just long enough for Vilgax to launch a devastating attack. The warlord moved with impossible speed, enhanced by his chronoton implants, and struck Ben with enough force to send him crashing into the far wall. I don't expect you to agree with my methods, Vilgax continued, advancing on Ben. But I had hoped you might understand the necessity. Ben struggled to his feet, Clockwork's form dented but functional. There's always another way, Vilgax. Always. Not always, Tennyson. Sometimes the hard choice is the only choice. Vilgax gestured to the weapon, now glowing even brighter. In 14 minutes, it won't matter what you believe. Ben assessed his options. Clockwork could temporarily disrupt the weapon, but not destroy it entirely. He needed to get Azimuth to the control console to implement the counterwave. But with his friends frozen in time and Vilgax blocking the path. What if I told you there was a better solution? Ben offered. A way to save your species without destroying Earth? Vilgax paused, suspicion evident in his glowing eyes. What trick is this? No trick. Ben took a cautious step forward. The Omnitrix contains pure Chimera sui generis DNA. Azimuth confirmed it could be used to create a cure for your people's genetic degradation. Azimuth said this? Vilgax's tone remained skeptical, but Ben detected a flicker of hope. Yes. He admitted he should have helped your people long ago. Ben took another step. Let him access the console. Release the temporal field. We can work together to find a real solution. Vilgax studied Ben for a long moment, conflict visible on his alien features. Then his expression hardened. A generous offer, Tennyson. But too late, and too uncertain. My people need a homeworld, not promises. They can have a homeworld. Ben insisted. There are uninhabited planets that could be terraformed ethically. After decades of begging the Galactic Council for permission, Vilgax sneered. After watching more generations die waiting for bureaucrats to approve our survival. No. The time for half measures has passed. Ben realized negotiation had failed. He needed a new approach, and fast. 13 minutes remained before Earth's transformation became irreversible. Time. That was the key. If he couldn't defeat Vilgax directly, perhaps he could manipulate time itself. Ben focused his clockwork abilities, not on Vilgax or the weapon, but on the chamber around them. Concentrating intensely, he generated a localized temporal field, different from Vilgax's. "What are you doing?" Vilgax demanded, sensing the change. "Something stupid," Ben admitted. "But hopefully effective." The temporal field expanded, encompassing Gwen, Kevin, Azimuth, and Zenith. Within this bubble, time began flowing normally again, while remaining slowed outside. "Ben!" Gwen exclaimed, suddenly freed from the time lock. "What? No time to explain." Ben called, straining to maintain the field. "Azimuth, the counterwave." "Now." Understanding immediately, Azimuth directed Kevin and Gwen toward the weapon console. Vilgax roared in anger, charging toward them. "I'll handle Vilgax," Ben declared. "Get to the console." Ben dropped the larger temporal field to conserve energy, focusing instead on a direct confrontation with Vilgax. As the warlord attacked, Ben generated a time ray from his chest plate, aiming not at Vilgax directly, but at the chronoton tubes integrated into his body. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Vilgax's enhanced systems began to destabilize, the red energy in his tubes fluctuating wildly. "What have you done?" Vilgax gasped, momentarily stunned by the feedback. "Phase-shifted your temporal enhancements," Ben explained grimly. "Just like Grandpa suggested." Vilgax snarled, fighting through the disruption to lunge at Ben again. Their battle intensified, with Ben using Clockwork's temporal abilities to counter Vilgax's raw strength and speed. Meanwhile, Kevin carved a path through the remaining guards, his metal form withstanding their weapons' fire. Gwen provided cover with mana shields and blasts, clearing the way to the weapon console. "Hurry!" Ben called, taking a punishing blow from Vilgax that cracked his chest plate. 10 minutes left. Azimuth and Zenith reached the console, immediately beginning the complex process of integrating the counterwave formula. Siphon attempted to intervene, but Kevin intercepted him, slamming the pale alien against a wall. "Remember me?" Kevin growled. "The guy you once tried to sell to the Vriedel brothers?" "Levin," Siphon acknowledged nervously. "Perhaps we can discuss." Kevin's metallic fist cut off whatever offer Siphon had been about to make. At the console, Azimuth worked furiously, his tiny hands moving with incredible speed across the controls. "The chronoton matrix is more complex than anticipated," he reported. "The counterwave requires recalibration." "How long?" Gwen asked, deflecting enemy fire while maintaining a protective barrier around the galvans. 7 minutes, minimum, Zenith replied. "And that's being optimistic." Ben heard this exchange as he continued to battle Vilgax. The warlord had recovered from the initial shock of the phase shift attack and adapted, his system stabilizing. Now he pressed his advantage, driving Ben backward with each powerful blow. "Your friends cannot stop the weapon," Vilgax declared. "The process has advanced too far." A particularly devastating strike sent Ben crashing into the weapon itself. His clockwork form absorbed some of the chronoton energy, but the impact still caused him to revert to human form, the Omnitrix beeping as it entered recharge mode. "Ben!" Gwen cried in alarm. Vilgax advanced, triumph in his glowing eyes. "At last, Tennyson. No transformations. No escapes. Just you, human and vulnerable, watching as your world changes forever." Ben struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain that coursed through his body. "Not over, yet. 8 minutes until transformation completion," Siphon announced, having recovered from Kevin's attack. "The initial wave has already reached Earth's outer atmosphere." On the holographic displays, the planet's stratosphere showed signs of molecular changes, a faint greenish hue spreading from the poles inward. The Omnitrix continued to beep, recharge cycle not yet complete. Ben backed away, buying time, mind racing for a solution. Azimuth, he called. We need options. The Galvan looked up from the console, expression grave. The counterwave formula is working, but too slowly. The chronoton acceleration is overwhelming our calculations. What about the special transformation? Ben asked desperately. The one you gave me? Azimuth hesitated. It's untested, potentially dangerous, but yes, it might work. Might is better than won't, Ben decided. How do I access it? Command function Omega-37, Azimuth instructed. But Ben, you must understand, this transformation wasn't designed for combat. It's a last resort, with unknown consequences. The Omnitrix's recharge cycle completed, the familiar green glow returning. Ben immediately input the command sequence Azimuth provided. Omnitrix, function Omega-37, activate. The device beeped in acknowledgement, its interface shifting to display an alien silhouette Ben had never seen before. Without hesitation, he slammed down on the dial. The transformation felt different immediately. Instead of the usual rush of changing DNA, Ben experienced a strange sensation of expansion, not physical, but conceptual somehow. His consciousness seemed to spread outward, connecting with the chronoton field permeating the chamber. When the transformation completed, Ben looked down at himself in amazement. His body appeared almost translucent, composed of shifting layers of green energy. Intricate patterns reminiscent of clock gears rotated within his form, and time itself seemed to flow differently around him. A tempuzal, Azimuth explained quickly. Extremely rare, temporal manipulators from the 8th dimension. Their DNA was thought lost until recently. Vilgax backed away, genuine alarm on his features. Impossible. The tempuzal were myths, stories to frighten chronosapien children. Guess the stories were true, Ben replied, his voice echoing strangely, as if coming from multiple points in time simultaneously. Let's see what this form can do. Ben reached out toward the weapon, not physically but with his expanded temporal awareness. He could sense the chronoton flows, the molecular transformation patterns, the very fabric of spacetime being manipulated. With newfound instinct, he began to counter the weapon's effects, reversing the chronoton polarities and creating temporal nullification fields. The weapon's pulsing slowed, its components struggling against Ben's influence. No! Vilgax roared, charging forward. I won't let you ruin everything. But as he approached Ben, time itself seemed to warp around the warlord. Vilgax's movements became erratic, sometimes accelerating, sometimes nearly stopping. His chronoton enhancements, rather than protecting him, made him more vulnerable to the tempuzal's abilities. 6 minutes to transformation completion, Siphon announced, though his voice now carried uncertainty. Not if I can help it, Ben replied. He turned to Azimuth. The counterwave? Ready, the Galvan confirmed. But we need direct connection to the weapon's core. Ben nodded, understanding what needed to be done. Everyone, get back. His team retreated as Ben approached the weapon, temporal energy crackling around his translucent form. Vilgax struggled against the time distortions, still trying to reach him. Don't do this, Tennyson, the warlord called. My people will die. No, they won't, Ben promised. We'll find another way. The right way. With that, Ben merged his tempuzal form directly into the weapon's chronoton field. The sensation was indescribable, like diving into an ocean of time itself, currents and eddies of past and future swirling around him. Within this temporal maelstrom, Ben located the weapon's core programming, the instructions directing the molecular transformation of Earth. Using his connection to the Omnitrix, he opened a channel for Azimuth's counterwave formula to flow directly into the system. Outside, the team watched in awe as Ben's form seemed to become one with the weapon, green energy spreading throughout its components. The chronoton field fluctuated wildly, then began to contract. It's working. Zenith exclaimed. The transformation process is reversing. On the holographic displays, the greenish hue that had begun spreading through Earth's atmosphere receded, molecular structures returning to their original state. Vilgax stared in disbelief, then fury. With a roar of defiance, he charged the weapon directly, intent on stopping Ben physically if he couldn't do so technologically. Vilgax, don't. Gwen warned. The Chronoton field is destabilizing. But the warlord ignored her, reaching the weapon and plunging his hands into its swirling core. The effect was catastrophic. Vilgax's Chronoton enhancements reacted violently with the destabilizing field, creating a cascading temporal reaction. Energy surged outward in waves, forcing everyone to take cover. The weapon's components began to disintegrate, not physically but temporally, ceasing to exist in the present moment. Ben! Gwen shouted over the growing temporal storm. Get out of there! Within the Chronoton field, Ben felt the system collapsing around him. His temporal form provided some protection, but he could sense the danger of becoming untethered from normal time. With tremendous effort, he extracted himself from the weapon's core, materializing beside his friends just as the device imploded. Unlike Vilgax's ship, this implosion was controlled, focused inward. The weapon collapsed into a singularity the size of a marble, then winked out of existence with a final flash of light. Silence fell over the chamber. Ben reverted to human form, exhausted beyond measure. The Omnitrix, having facilitated such an unusual transformation, entered emergency recharge mode. Is it over? Kevin asked cautiously. Did we win? Azimuth consulted his instruments. The weapon has been neutralized. Earth's molecular structure remains unchanged. And Vilgax? Ben looked toward where the warlord had been. Gone, Zenith replied softly. The temporal reaction, he's been displaced. Perhaps to another time, perhaps outside of time entirely. And Siphon? Gwen added, looking around. Kevin snorted. Ran like the coward he is. Probably heading for an escape pod as we speak. Ben nodded wearily. Let him go. We need to focus on getting out of here ourselves. This ship won't last long without the command systems. As if to emphasize his point, the chamber shuddered, lights flickering as power systems failed throughout the vessel. Ben. Max's voice came through the communicator. We've secured the command center. Rook's patched into the ship's systems. What's your status? Mission accomplished, Grandpa, Ben replied with a tired smile. The weapon's neutralized, Earth is safe. Vilgax is gone. And the rest of the fleet? Good news on that front, Rook cut in. Tetrax and the Galactic Enforcers have disabled 2 cruisers. The third is retreating. Perfect timing, Kevin remarked. Our ride still docked and ready to go. As they made their way back through the increasingly unstable ship, Ben found himself reflecting on Vilgax's words. Had the warlord truly believed he was saving his species? Had desperation driven him to such extremes? Azimuth, Ben said quietly as they approached the docking bay. Was Vilgax telling the truth? About his people dying out? The Galvan sighed heavily. Yes. The Chimera Sui Generis face a genuine crisis. Their genetic structure has been degrading for generations. Then we need to help them, Ben decided. Not Vilgax's way, but the right way. Using the Omnitrix as you originally intended, to foster understanding between species. Azimuth studied Ben with newfound respect. After everything Vilgax has done to you and your world, you would still help his people? That's what heroes do, Ben replied simply. Even for their enemies. 2 days later, Ben stood at the window of Plumber HQ, watching as cleanup crews retrieved the last of Vilgax's atmospheric devices from Earth's orbit. The crisis had passed, the threat neutralized, but questions remained. Still thinking about Vilgax? Gwen asked, joining him at the window. Ben nodded. And what he said about his people. About doing whatever it takes to save them. You're not having second thoughts about stopping him, are you? No, Ben said firmly. His methods were wrong. Destroying one species to save another is never the answer. He paused. But his motivation. I can understand that part. So what now? Ben turned to face her. Now we do what we should have done years ago. We help the Chimera sway generous. The door slid open, and Max entered with Azimuth, Rook, and Kevin. Perfect timing, Gwen smiled. Ben was just talking about helping Vilgax's people. Max nodded approvingly. Already in the works. I've spoken with the Galactic Council. They've agreed to lift the quarantine on the Chimera sway generous homeworld, allowing medical and scientific aid. With conditions, of course, Azimuth added. The plumbers will oversee the operation to ensure no technology is misused. And the DNA cure? Ben asked. Zenith and I have begun developing a treatment using the uncorrupted genetic samples from the Omnitrix, Azimuth explained. Preliminary tests are promising. What about Vilgax himself? Rook questioned. Do we consider him deceased? Ben shook his head. With Vilgax, I've learned never to assume anything. Whatever that temporal displacement did to him, I doubt we've seen the last of him. Great, Kevin groaned. Something to look forward to. Despite the potential future threat, Ben felt a sense of closure. They had averted catastrophe, saved Earth, and perhaps even begun healing an ancient wrong. The cycle of vengeance and retaliation that had defined his relationship with Vilgax might finally be broken. Oh, before I forget, Max said, reaching into his pocket. This came for you, Ben. He handed over a small package. Ben opened it curiously to find what looked like a plumber badge, but with subtle differences in design. What's this? An invitation, Max explained with pride. The Galactic Council wants to recognize your actions. They're offering you a position as Earth's official representative. Ben stared at the badge in disbelief. Seriously? Me? A diplomat? Kevin snickered. The guy who once tried to use Upchuck to win a hot dog eating contest. A diplomat? Hey, I was 15. Ben protested. I've matured since then. Indeed you have, Azimuth agreed unexpectedly. Your decision to help the Chimera sway generous, despite their leader's actions against you, that shows true wisdom, Ben Tennyson. Ben felt a surprising warmth at the Galvan's rare praise. Thanks, Azimuth. That means a lot. Don't let it go to your head, Azimuth grumbled. Reverting to his usual cantankerous self. You're still reckless, impulsive, and prone to showing off. Some things never change, Gwen laughed. Ben smiled, looking down at the Omnitrix. Some things did change, though. He had grown, learned, faced challenges that had tested not just his abilities but his values. And through it all, he tried to remain true to what mattered most, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, and finding solutions that respected all forms of life. As he looked back out at Earth, peaceful once more thanks to their efforts, Ben felt ready for whatever came next. Whether diplomat or defender, whether facing Vilgax again or new threats entirely, he would continue to do what he had since that fateful summer day when a strange watch fell from the sky. He would be a hero. Not just for Earth, but for anyone who needed one. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.